as a commercial truck driver, you know better than anyone how crucial that CDL in your wallet really is.
Mm.
I mean, it's not just a piece of plastic.
No, it's your livelihood.
Exactly. It's your mortgage, your family's security.
Right.
And when you think about losing it, your mind probably jumps to a catastrophic event on the highway.
Right. A major accident.
Yeah. Or when it comes to drug and alcohol testing, you picture that dreaded positive result. A clear, undeniable failure. You took a substance, you failed a test, you face the consequences.
Which is, it's how most people view the system. It feels entirely binary.
Passed or failed.
Right. You passed or you failed. And in a strange way, that clarity is comforting because it feels like you're entirely in control of your own destiny, If you stay clean, you stay on the road.
But then you step into the actual reality of DOT testing regulations, and you realize the system doesn't just care about what is in your bloodstream.
Not at all.
We're looking at a regulatory landscape where the biggest dangers to your career are, well, procedural muddy waters. You can be 100% clean, never touch a substance in your life, and still lose your CDL today.
Oh, easily. It is the absolute definition of a procedural minefield. The DOT's strict compliance framework means that simple misunderstandings or, moments of frustration or even logistical hiccups at a clinic, they can sideline your career just as fast as a positive drug test.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are talking directly to you, the professional driver, to clear up a massive and frankly dangerous misconception.
Yeah, this is so important.
So many drivers believe the only way to get a prohibition slapped on them in the FMCSA Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse is by testing positive. But the reality...
A refusal to test leads to the exact same career-ending outcome.
The exact same. We're talking months of mandated SAP substance abuse professional programs and grueling return-to-duty work.
The trap here is the word itself, refusal.
Right, because what does that look like?
Well, when we hear it, we imagine a driver standing up, looking a clinic worker in the eye and dramatically saying, "I refuse to take this test."
Throwing the cup on the floor.
Exactly. But under the regulations, a refusal is often quiet. It's a driver leaving a waiting room too early, or arguing about emptying their pockets, or dealing with a bodily inability to provide a specimen.
Wow.
In some of these situations, you might not even make it to the clinic parking lot before you've technically committed a refusal.
Okay, let's unpack this from the very beginning. We need to define the invisible start line.
Let's do it.
So let's say your fleet manager calls you up and says you've been selected for a random drug test. I like to think of this notification like a relay race.
Okay, I like that.
The baton is passed to you the exact second that phone call happens. It's not passed when you finally decide to stroll through the clinic doors.
That analogy perfectly captures the DOT's mindset. Under the regulations, the obligation to test begins upon notification.
Immediately.
Yes. The element of surprise is the entire foundation of random testing. If drivers had a buffer period between being notified and actually reporting to the clinic, well, the integrity of the test would vanish entirely.
So let's put a face to this. Imagine a driver, we'll call him Chris.
All right, Chris.
Chris gets the call from safety. And he's the kind of guy who likes to know the exact technical boundaries of the rules.
We all know a Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So he asks his manager, "Hey, when does the clock officially start? Is it when I walk into the waiting room? Or when I sign the intake form? When they hand me the plastic cup?" He's looking for the technical point of no return.
And by doing that, Chris is already digging his own grave.
Seriously. Just for asking.
He's asking the wrong question entirely. The regulation doesn't define the start of a random test by the clinic's intake forms. Once you are notified of a random selection, your subsequent actions must lead to immediate testing.
So no detours.
None. If you try to pinpoint the exact second a refusal becomes possible so you can, squeeze in some personal time, you are violating the core principle of the mandate.
Which brings up a very practical problem for a lot of drivers. What does the DOT actually mean by the word immediately?
Right.
Consider another scenario. A driver gets a call from dispatch at 9:00 a.m. on a Tuesday. We'll call him Daniel.
Okay, Daniel.
The manager says, "You're up for a random, head to the clinic today."
Yeah.
But Daniel knows that specific clinic is always backed up with a 2-hour wait in the morning.
It's always packed.
Exactly. And he has a few personal errands to run, maybe needs to grab breakfast, so he figures, I'll just go tomorrow morning right when they open. In his mind, he complied. He took the test.
But in the eyes of the DOT, he just committed a serious refusal violation.
Wait, really? Just for waiting until the next morning?
Yes. Random means proceed immediately to the collection site, not to borrow. not after your errands.
Wow.
The FMCSA guidance is crystal clear here. Unless you have received specific documented instructions from the appropriate employer representative authorizing a delay, and that's only for a legitimate, unforeseen circumstance, waiting until the next day is a textbook refusal.
Because of the biological aspects, right?
Yeah, exactly. The reason is biological. Time allows substances to metabolize out of the body. If you delay, the DOT just assumes you are delaying to clear your system.
Right. Now, I want to make sure we don't confuse random testing with pre-employment testing because the rules completely shift here.
They do, significant.
If I'm applying for a new driving job and I'm sent for a pre-employment test, the start line isn't the phone call, right?
That's a vital distinction. Pre-employment testing is treated differently because you aren't actually performing safety-sensitive functions for that employer yet.
Because you're not an employee.
Right, you are just an applicant. So simply failing to appear for a pre-employment test isn't automatically a DOT refusal that goes on your clearinghouse record.
So if I'm an applicant, I can just change my mind. Say I'm sitting in the clinic waiting room for a pre-employment screen, my phone buzzes, and a different carrier offers me a better route with higher pay. I can just stand up and walk out.
Up to a very specific point, yes.
Yeah, what is that point?
The point of no return for a pre-employment urine collection is deeply tied to the chain of custody. According to the regulations, the test officially begins the exact moment the collection container is selected and the wrapper or seal is opened in the presence of you and the collector.
Oh, wow.
The moment that seal is broken, you are locked in. If you walk out after the cup is opened, even as a pre-employment applicant, that is a refusal.
So before the plastic rips, you're a free agent. After it rips, you're on the hook.
Exactly.
But let's move back to the driver who is already employed. You've received the random test call, you did everything right, you headed immediately to the clinic. Now you face the next major hurdle, which is the clinic itself. Welcome to the trap of the waiting room.
Oh, and this is where things get incredibly messy.
Because clinics are unpredictable.
Highly unpredictable environments.
Let me push back on the strictness of these rules for a second because life happens. Imagine you are checked in, sitting in those uncomfortable plastic chairs, waiting for your name to be called. Let's say this is Robert.
Okay, Robert is waiting.
Suddenly, Robert's phone rings. It's his neighbor. His spouse has just been rushed to the hospital in an ambulance.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Any human being in that situation is going to panic, run up to the reception and say, I have a family emergency, I have to go, and sprint out the door. Are you telling me the DOT expects you to sit there and pee in a cup while your spouse is in the ER?
It sounds incredibly heartless, I know. But we have to look at the mechanics of the regulations.
Okay.
When you leave a collection site before the testing process is complete, it generally constitutes a refusal.
Even for an ambulance?
Well, the critical nuance here is about who actually holds the power.
Hmm.
The clinic receptionist or the collector. They are not judges. They are just compliance monitors.
Right, they just do the paperwork.
Exactly. They don't have the authority to excuse you. If you run out, all they do is note on the form driver, abandon the test.
So you're just doomed. You have to choose between your CDL and your family.
Not necessarily, but you cannot make the decision to leave unilaterally. The power to determine if your conduct constitutes a refusal lies entirely with your employer.
The DR.
Right. Specifically, the designated employer representative, or the DR. Employers have a non-delegable responsibility to make this call. If a driver faces a true emergency, they must immediately contact their DR, explain the situation, get direct instructions, and this is the most important part, preserve the documentation.
Because the DR needs proof to defend their decision to the DOT.
Precisely. Hospital admission records, EMS logs, police reports. There is no automatic guarantee an emergency prevents a refusal, but without that documentation and without the DR's involvement, you are essentially guaranteeing a refusal violation.
So you have to communicate.
Always. The golden rule is, once directed to test, never ever make your own decision to delay or leave.
Okay, but what if the issue isn't a life or death emergency? What if the clinic is just painfully, agonizingly slow?
Which happens a lot.
All the time. Let's say a driver, we'll call her Tina, has been sitting in a crowded clinic for 2 solid hours. She's got a 14-hour clock ticking down. Dispatch is blowing up her phone, asking where she is.
The pressure is on.
Right. She finally gets fed up, tells the front desk, look, I have a job to do. I'll come back tomorrow when you aren't so backed up. And she leaves.
That is a massive career error.
Really? Even with the clock ticking?
Yes. A long wait does not give you permission to terminate the process. Once you are directed to that site, you are a captive audience until you are officially released. Leaving because you are frustrated or even because your shift clock is running out is a textbook refusal.
Wow! I can hear drivers screaming at their speakers right now. You are trapped in a waiting room, losing money by the minute, and you just have to sit there.
You do.
But let me throw a curveball at you. What if it's the clinic that pulls the plug?
Okay, how so?
Imagine a driver, Carlos. He's been waiting for hours. It's 5:55 p.m. The clinic employee walks out, turns off the lobby lights, and says, "Hey man, we close at 6:00. We can't do your test today. You have to leave." If Carlos walks out, surely that's not on him.
It shouldn't be, but if Carlos handles it wrong, it absolutely will be.
How could that be his fault?
The DOT urine specimen collection guidelines specifically address site closures. The site is supposed to make every effort to provide the driver the full required time, and they are required to contact the employer if they can't.
But I've been in clinics. Sometimes they just want to go home.
Very true.
So if the worker tells Carlos to leave, Carlos can't just say, "Okay, thanks," and head to his truck.
If he does that, the paperwork might just show he left before completion, triggering a refusal investigation.
Seriously.
Carlos has to be his own advocate. He must ask the collector to formally document that the clinic is unable to complete the federally required procedure due to closure.
Get it in writing.
Always. And before his boots even hit the parking lot pavement, Carlos needs to be on the phone with his BER getting instructions on what to do next. The DOT looks for a very specific distinction. Did the driver abandon the test, or did the clinic fail to provide the service? Carlos has to prove it was the latter.
The burden of proof is always on the driver.
Always.
So let's say you survive the waiting room. They call your name. You are face to face with the collector. The friction doesn't stop here, does it? It actually intensifies.
Oh, absolutely.
Because now you are dealing with collection procedures, and honestly, it can feel demeaning.
It's highly controlled, and failure to cooperate with any of the collector's instructions is in itself a refusal.
I always compare this part to going through TSA at the airport.
And that's a good comparison.
Nobody enjoys taking off their shoes, removing their belt, or having their laptop swabbed. You might think it's ridiculous and invasive, but if you stand there, get defensive, and start arguing with the TSA agent about your rights, you aren't going to win a philosophical debate.
Nope.
You are just going to miss your flight.
That is the perfect way to look at it. The clinic is an environment of compliance, not negotiation. Consider a driver, let's call him Steven, who is asked by the collector to empty his pockets.
Okay.
Steven feels insulted, thinks it's an illegal search, and refuses. He stands his ground.
He wants to win the argument.
And he might feel victorious in the moment, but he just turned a routine, likely negative drug test into a career-ending refusal.
Just for not emptying his pockets.
Just for that. The DOT explicitly states that refusing to empty your pockets, failing to wash your hands when instructed, or refusing to remove an object from your mouth during an oral fluid collection are all categorized as failures to cooperate.
Wow.
The rules exist to prevent tampering, like hiding adulterants or fake urine, and the DOT does not compromise on them.
Which brings us to the most uncomfortable, universally dreaded part of this entire process.
Direct observation.
Yes. Let's be real. Nobody wants another human being watching them in the bathroom. But there are specific triggers that mandate this, right?
Yes. The DOT mandates directly observed collections, where the observer is required to visually watch the urine go from the driver's body directly into the container under very specific circumstances.
Okay, like what?
This applies to all return-to-duty tests, all follow-up tests, or if the collector notices signs of tampering, or if your first specimen's temperature is out of range.
So imagine a driver, James, who's doing a return-to-duty test. This automatically triggers the direct observation rule.
Yes, it does.
James gets into the room, realizes what is happening, and says, "Look, I have a shy bladder. I physically cannot go with somebody watching me. I refuse to do it this way."
And that refusal to permit the observation is an immediate testing violation.
But wait, what if they genuinely have a psychological block? Paresis is a real thing.
It is, but the DOT draws a very sharp line here. You cannot refuse the procedure of observation.
You have to let them in.
Yes. If you cooperate, allow the observer into the room, follow the steps, but your body genuinely cannot produce the urine because of anxiety, then you enter the shy bladder protocol, which we will get to in a moment.
Gotcha.
But the moment you say, "I won't let you watch," you have committed a refusal. You can't opt out of the rules of the game.
And this strictness applies to retests, too. Let's say Brian gives a specimen, but the temperature strip on the cup reads 90 degrees.
Which is out of the acceptable human body range.
Right. So
Uh.
the collector says, this is out of range, I need another specimen immediately, and this one has to be under direct observation. I can see a veteran driver getting highly offended, saying, I already gave you my urine, I'm done, and walking out.
Which is a fatal error.
Or what about lab results? Let's talk about Jennifer.
Mhm.
Jennifer takes a test, goes back to work, and a week later gets a call.
Okay.
The lab result was negative for drugs, but the medical review officer, the MRO, flagged it as a negative dilute, meaning there was too much water in the sample to be certain.
Right, very common.
The MRO orders an immediate recollection under direct observation.
Hmm.
I know drivers who would think, hey, my first test was negative, that protects me, and they refuse to go back in.
That is a profound misunderstanding of the MRO's authority. A previous negative dilute result does not shield you.
It doesn't.
No, a dilute specimen can be a sign of intentional water loading to mask drug use. When the MRO or the employer requires an additional test, declining it is a refusal. Full stop.
Yeah.
You do not get to decide when the testing process is satisfied.
Man, the rules are rigid. So we've talked about logistical traps and procedural friction. But what does this all mean when your own biology betrays you?
The biology trap.
Right. Let's transition into that, because a lot of drivers listening to this are thinking, listen, I follow the rules. But let's call him Anthony. Anthony is running a flatbed in Texas, sweating in a 100-degree cab for 10 hours. He is completely tapped out.
Dehydrated.
Severely.
Yeah.
He literally has no fluids left. Shouldn't looking the collector in the eye and saying I'm dehydrated be a valid automatic medical excuse to go home?
It seems like common sense, doesn't it? But under DOT regulations, dehydration is absolutely, unequivocally not an excuse.
Not at all.
Not at all. This is where we have to dig into the shy bladder procedure.
Okay, break the mechanics of this down for us.
Mm.
What are the actual volume requirements?
A standard DOT urine specimen requires a minimum of 45 milliliters of urine.
Which isn't a lot. It's roughly, what, an ounce and a half?
Right, but if you are bone dry, it might as well be a gallon.
Fair point.
If your first attempt doesn't produce that 45 milliliters, the shy bladder clock starts. You are offered up to 40 ounces of fluid, which is distributed over a period of up to 3 hours.
Wait, am I legally forced to chug 40 ounces of water?
No, declining the fluid is not a refusal. You know your body best.
Right.
Maybe drinking that much will make you sick.
Right.
But, and this is the critical part, you must remain at the testing site and continue cooperating for that entire 3-hour window.
So let's go back to our Texas flatbed driver, Anthony. Hugh can't produce the 45 milliliters. He tells the clinic, look, I've been in the heat all day, I'm severely dehydrated, and he assumes he's off the hook because he has a valid physical reason.
And this is where the DOT drops the hammer.
Oh boy.
The regulation explicitly states that an adequate medical condition requires an ascertainable physiological condition or a medically documented pre-existing psychological disorder.
So dehydration doesn't count.
The rules specifically single out and exclude unsupported situational anxiety and dehydration as adequate medical explanations on their own.
Why? Why won't they accept dehydration when driving a truck is obviously such a sweaty job?
Because if dehydration were a valid excuse, the system would collapse.
How so?
Think about it. Any driver who knew they were going to test positive for a substance would intentionally dehydrate themselves, fail to provide a specimen, claim they were just sweating in the cab, and use the delay to buy time for the drugs to metabolize out of their system.
Oh,
The DOT cannot leave that loophole open.
wow. So just doing your job hard does not protect you. You are stuck in that waiting room for 3 hours.
Yeah.
But let's say a driver, William, complies. He sits there for 3 agonizing hours. He drinks the water. He tries. But at the end of 3 hours, he still can't produce 45 milliliters.
It happens.
He figures, hey, I gave it my best shot. The time is up, and he goes home. Is the nightmare over?
The collection process at the clinic is over, but the regulatory process is just beginning.
Really? There's more.
Yes. In that scenario, the employer's DER will contact William and inform him that he must undergo a mandatory medical evaluation with a licensed physician.
Usually arranged by the MRO, right?
Yes, often arranged by the MRO to prove he has a legitimate physiological or psychological disorder that prevented him from producing urine.
I can hear the exhaustion now.
Ooh.
William just wasted 3 hours, and now his boss is telling him he has to go see another doctor like he's on trial.
Exactly.
What happens if William just says, I'm not doing it? I wasted my afternoon. I'm not going to another doctor appointment.
If he does that, he just committed career suicide.
Just for skipping the doctor.
Under 49 CFR Part 40, failing to undergo the required medical examination associated with a shy bladder process turns that insufficient specimen into a full-blown refusal.
Unbelievable.
You cannot tap out because you are tired of the bureaucracy. The process only ends when the medical review officer and the DER officially conclude it.
It all comes back to that central theme, doesn't it? If we look at everything we've unpacked, from trying to time your arrival after the phone call, to sprinting out for a family emergency, to arguing about your pockets, to skipping the shy bladder doctor visit,
Right.
the underlying thread is a total breakdown in communication and a misunderstanding of who actually holds the authority.
That is exactly the takeaway. In a system built entirely on strict compliance, making assumptions is the most dangerous thing a driver can do.
So let's recap the core survival rules for everyone listening in the cab right now. Never, ever try to solve a DOT testing problem by yourself. Your ultimate communication lifeline is your DER, or your safety manager. If the clinic is closing early, if the wait is 3 hours long, if your spouse is in the hospital, or if the collector asks you to do something that feels invasive, do not walk out.
And don't reschedule it yourself.
Right. Do not tell them you'll reschedule it yourself. Do not assume you are finished until you are officially released. You call your DER, you force the clinic to document everything on paper, and you follow instructions to the letter.
It's that simple.
A 5-minute phone call to your employer from the clinic lobby can quite literally prevent months of SAP programs and a massive stain on your clearinghouse record.
It's about shifting your mindset. You aren't just taking a medical test, you are participating in a legal compliance audit.
And I want to leave you with this final, genuinely provocative thought to mull over as you run your miles today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We are living in an era where the trucking industry is rapidly digitizing. Think about your electronic logging devices, GPS tracking, inward-facing cameras.
Everything is tracked.
Exactly. The margin for human error, or human grace, is entirely vanishing. In the past, maybe a slow walk to the clinic or a miscommunication could be smoothed over with a phone call.
Sure.
But today, a strict regulatory framework that essentially assumes you are guilty until proven innocent is colliding with digital tracking that records your every second. When this procedural system traps you, when a momentary lapse of patience in a waiting room triggers a refusal,
Yeah.
it is recorded in a permanent digital database forever.
The clearinghouse.
Right. So it begs the question, as the administrative burden becomes completely unforgiving and the digital footprint makes every procedural gap impossible to hide, is the psychological weight of this guilty until proven innocent system pushing our safest, most veteran drivers out of the industry?
That is the conversation the industry desperately needs to have. We are enforcing zero-tolerance compliance in a world that is completely unforgiving of human friction.
Something to think about while you're rolling down the highway. Stay safe out there. Keep your DER on speed dial, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.